Okay, welcome everyone. This is our second meeting of the capstone project for the Internet of Things. Hope all is going well, and we'll make a bit of a start here. We're joined again by Savash and Yiffy. Thank you. And US students are here. So just again, a quick note, these meetings will be recorded and posted on YouTube for anyone who misses it. The link will go up on edX as soon as it's available, hopefully tomorrow fairly early. This week, we're just going to go through the requirements for the next couple of weeks and also some little hints and helpers on the lean canvas and the SWOT analysis that we're going to be doing. Has anyone had or sent in any queries to us that haven't been answered? If so, please raise your hand or say something. We don't need to worry too much about raising hands with this number of people. So just say so if you haven't had a response to any queries. So I think
this is Steve, Ian.
Sorry.
I've submitted an inquiry. I can't get Kvarner to work at all. Every time I try to get it to start up, it gives me an error when I first go into it, and it will not let me actually enter anything into the documents.
This is for the Canvanizer, is it?
Yeah, Canvanizer.
Okay. What I can't remember. I'm just reading your email. Yeah, I might just work in the background while
you have a look, see if you can solve it. Worst case scenario, we can give you a Word document that you can fill in.
Sure.
It's just a little bit messy doing it that way. Because I'll mention this again a bit later on, but one of the key things with the Canvanizer is it's a living document. So
Sure.
As you go through and discover stuff, it's really good to update it and make changes, particularly when it comes to writing that final report. So you can take the info that you've got on your Canvanizer and transfer that directly into the report you write.
Okay.
Anyone else got an issue they want to raise? All right. If not, one of the things we like to do is see if people have got a name for their device, what their prototype or their idea, because oddly enough, having a real name for something, it tends to give you a little bit of focus, and it's a good idea to have something catchy or something descriptive for your device. And I can give some really bad examples of that because being engineers, we're not very good at it. We came up with a 3D printed version of a braille embosser, braille as in the material that blind and vision impaired people use to read. And this was a typewriter that could be 3D printed anywhere. It was very, very low cost, around 150 Australian dollars, compared to the $3,500 to $5,500 for a normal braille typewriter that you buy commercially.
That's you.
So we came up with this wonderful idea. We called it the Cub, which stood for Curtin University Brailler. Very unimaginative. So it's always nice to have something a little bit better. So Ash, can we take everyone around the room and just ask if they've come up with a name for their device?
Sure. I'll just go from the top, the participant list, and don't feel pressured if you haven't named it yet. But yeah, just if you had an idea going around. First one on the participant list is Cyberfisk.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of a name. It's Vivere, which is my system is monitoring and maintenance system for houseplants. And the Vivere means to live in Latin. So yeah, it's just a description that the system is supposed to help the houseplants to keep on living even if they are neglected by the owner. So that was my idea for my name of the system or device.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
Cool, that's a good one. Justine, you want to go next?
Yeah. Actually, on my, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, the name of my device or my solution is not yet. Before I was talking about smart irrigation system, but I just need to come up with a new name that would be for my solution instead of using smart irrigation system, because everyone knows smart irrigation. So, but I haven't get any name so far, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
No problem. Cool. I have Khan as next. Khan.
Yes, I have a problem in the audio. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, but there is a distortion in your voice. Anyway, my name is Khan. I am basically, this is my first meeting because the previous meeting I was on travel, so I didn't attend. So, do you still hear me, right?
Yes, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Actually, I'm currently working in Saudi Arabia, Jeddah, in a security system company, well-known security system supplier, as an integrator. Okay, I have a master degree in computer sciences, and basically I am not in touch with my own field like programming or networking, but I am working in a low current system, including CCTV, access control, fire alarm, and all safety and security system. Okay. In project selection, I have selected to build an IoT smart project for the canal system in my home country. Like maybe you heard about that Pakistan is rich in agriculture, so we have a strong canal systems. Okay, and every year there is a floods coming, and there is a damage occurs. So I have a proposal. I have a design that I will submit like in a 13th of this month. We have a submission, so I will detail submit in that submission, as well as I will submit the video, so you can more where I can more elaborate the project details. So this is my aim to join this classes. I finalized first my 5 papers, and this is my last IoT capstone project.
It sounds like it's a good one.
Yeah.
Water is a critical asset, and flood detection, prevention, or at least monitoring is an area that's got application in so many areas, not just in Pakistan. We've been having a lot of floods in Australia lately, and if we can predict when something's going to flood, it can be significant saving of both life and property. And you've got the opportunity with that to look at integrating into the meteorological agencies in the country you're looking at to look where rainfall is, gathering the data. We'll have a hopefully interesting talk on big data and predictive analytics later. But to look at the environment and what's happening in areas outside of the area you're monitoring, and hopefully predict if there's going to be floods. So there's a lot of scope there. So it's a very interesting project.
Sorry, Khan, we were getting some feedback, so I just muted your microphone. But since we also got a couple of new names here, I'll briefly mention the main purpose of these seminars is after this one, we'll try to talk about a topic of interest, and the main aim is to get you talking to us, and this is going to be one of the main point of contacts, and we wanna discuss what you're doing in your projects, if you need any advice, and we really want to hear from you how you're going with your designs. And then one more thing I'll mention in case you missed the first seminar with the design. If you're from a non-technical background, your your project and what you end up submitting as the reports and submissions for this capstone unit can be on the design and defining the requirement aspect of it. It doesn't have to be a fully technical report and doesn't have to include the implementation aspect of it. But the idea is we are giving you the knowledge, hopefully, to be able to define the project and design it.
Being able to
if
talk
that's
to
the case.
the technical people is probably one of the greatest achievements that we could have in this course, so that if you're not a technical person, you can actually communicate to the engineers and software developers, or if you're a technical person yourself, being able to communicate things to the business orientated people, which is quite often a bit of an issue with engineers and computing people, that particular skill set.
Cool. So I'll move on to the next name on the list. Manny, do you want to tell us a bit about your idea and if you've chosen a name for it yet?
Actually, my project is about the vibration monitoring and the temperature monitoring for the motors. So what I'm thinking of, I haven't finalized yet, but motor health checker or motor monitor, that kind of terms. Yeah, something with the motor, then something to do with the continuous monitoring. I'm trying to find some synonyms against continuous monitoring, but I can't able to find out now. The best thing I can think of is motor monitor. Yeah.
That's okay. It says exactly what it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
So I have
Next one.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question. Yeah, just that, for the motor monitor, actually, I just want to, I tried the Tinkercad. One of the card I'm trying to simulate is MPU6050. That is a accelerometer card. I'm trying to put it in the Tinkercad, but I can't put it. Then how can I do some kind of simulation for this project?
If there's a component that's not available in Tinkercad, what you could do is you can use another Arduino module
Okay.
and have that transmit the data that you would have gotten from the module that you're thinking. So then that would be the stand-in for the missing sensor.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
in
one of
that case, you'd have it producing
Yeah.
6 or 9 variables, pseudo randomly in a pattern you would expect for the X, Y, and Z of the accelerometer and gyro.
Oh, okay. That means you are trying to tell me that like need to simulate the value from the program, like a 3 variable.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I can do that. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Cool. So the next thing on the list, Shelly, want to tell us a bit about your idea and if you've chosen a name for it?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay. I'm just down the road. I'm at the City of Mandurah.
Okay.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we're local governments. We're part of the Waterwise Council program, which is a West Australian run program. And we have been achieving gold and platinum status. However, to achieve this goal, it's a lot of manual work. So as mentioned, we have 177 bores in our locality, and each month one of our workers goes around and manually writes down the number on the bore. So we are looking at adding a pulse counter to the bore, putting up a LoRaWAN antenna, and getting the packets sent back to a big data platform. This will help create less manual labor and also start collating better data to make better data driven decisions. I work in the IT department at the City of Mandurah, and the gentleman at the depot contacted us because I've learned a lot actually. So down on the foreshore in Mandurah, the salt water goes up onto the grass and then kills the grass, and this is problematic for them. So initially they came to us with that problem, And this is now stemmed into monitoring the water level of the bores, which we'll be doing by the pulse counters. Is that enough of an explanation?
Yeah, it's good. The way you're going to, this is for measuring the flow volume used in the water?
Yes. So, and please, I'm not a water expert. I'm learning a lot. I'm working with our water officers. So the pulse counter. So there's a manual pulse counter on the bore. And when the water level rises or decreases, it ticks over. So every time someone drives out there, the number changes because the water level increases or decreases constantly.
Right.
So by putting a pulse counter on the meter, every time the meter changes, it sends a packet back to the platform, so we don't have to drive around manually.
That's really interesting. Since you're nice and local, we should actually have a chat at some point, because adding into that, there's a lot of things that we could do that's interesting, particularly with the usage of bore water and the location you're in and the salinity that's involved.
And that's what it all comes back to, especially because we have a lot of wetlands in the area. The level of the groundwater, so I've been told, can indicate a many number of things, what the wetlands will be doing for the animals and for the mosquitoes and everything. So we've had to scale the project back. So first of all, we need to install them. Then we're going to make sure we've got our data correct, get it up on the platform, and then, so yeah, baby steps.
Yeah, always best to get one thing working at a time, make sure it's doing exactly what you expect, and then add things in as you go along.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. I think that would go well with our friend who's doing the canal monitoring as well. That could actually be there could be some commonality there.
And where's the canal monitoring, in Mandurah or?
No, Pakistan.
Oh, sorry, I missed half the conversation because I couldn't get my audio to work.
That's okay.
Yeah, he's working in Saudi, but he's from Pakistan and wants to look at canal flooding and for the irrigation, those sort of aspects.
Yes, wonderful. So our project will also move on into our irrigation department and our drainage department as well. So obviously when our irrigation team water the lawn, it depletes the natural aquifers. But obviously when we get a heavy rainfall, it increases our natural aquifers, and then the drainage team gets concerned because we're going to need, all the water needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So eventually the drainage team want to come on board and start to understand where they need to better place their drains. And I just wanted to mention that because we are a local government, my view is not about making a sellable product. It's just about providing sustainability and a better service to our customers. Yeah. If I'm allowed to go ahead with this type of project, I mean, I've done a business plan and everything. It's just not focused on cost effectiveness. It's more focused on providing our customers with a more sustainable environment, which is high on our customer list.
Yeah, that's actually something we'll be talking about a bit later this evening. It's the kind of models that you use when you're developing your system, whether you're looking at cost or philanthropic or social good, those sort of things, which are all of equal value. They just have a different way of approaching the planning, a different way of looking at the prototyping, different way of getting the technology out into the field. but it's very valid. Savash and I do a lot of work in disability, and that's an area that you generally can't make a commercial success of, because the people you're providing the solutions for are usually fairly low economic status. So they
Yes.
don't have a lot of money to use on this equipment, so you'll never get rich from it, but it's definitely worth doing.
So yeah, I've just put in my business plan that we're not focusing on revenue, but we're focusing more on community satisfaction and efficiency, environmental efficiency, that type of thing.
Perfectly valid. That's the return on investment.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
we normally talk about your return on investment. We're talking about the cash you put in compared to the cash you get out.
Mhm.
In your case, it's very much the effort you put into the benefits to the community that you get out.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
And one thing I'll add is for those upcoming submissions, the ones that focus a bit more on the commercialization aspect, if you wanted to slightly modify the way you're answering them within the context of the government, that's completely okay. That's more of a guideline, so you can veer off into a direction that you're talking more about the business plan and the effects of community, as you mentioned. So we'll make sure that's all sorted. And since since you're local, there might be an opportunity for us to maybe potentially continue collaborating after this if you're interested in. Because I think something like these sort of, especially the LoRa implementation type projects, that's something a lot of our honors students end up getting involved in, kind of working and kind of contributing to projects like this. So there might be some opportunities for further collaboration later on.
Yes,
And we do like
wonderful.
And not just for the locals, of course.
Yeah,
We've had good collaborations. We mentioned
of
last
course,
year.
yeah.
But people in many different countries. Locally, we had one with Horizon Power that's been commercialised. We've had the cerebral palsy one with Sana, who's in Sweden, I think now, but
Yeah.
was in Syria.
Yeah, she was in Iraq first,
Right.
and then ended up moving. Actually, ended up using the research we did, because we continued the research, and ended up writing a paper together. And she ended up using that as a jumping off point and applying for a position in one of the universities in Sweden. Yeah. So yeah, so we definitely look forward if you were interested in kind of continuing to collaborate with you and work together beyond this course. All right, so Steve, to you, if you want to tell us a bit about your project and if you've thought of a name for it. And for that Canvanizer question you sent us, and maybe give it a day or so. If you don't receive that notification, we can give you the headings for the Canvanizer, and kind of can do it in a Word document. Just make it easier.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, good evening. Yeah, my project is a LoRaWAN temperature/humidity sensor for lab refrigerators. It's something that we see in the pharmaceutical as well as in testing laboratories where they have to maintain temperature humidity over several different refrigerators. The idea is because there's not an immediate need to have the data continuous. A lot of it can be done on a 10-minute basis or even an hour basis, but basically they need to maintain that internal temperature humidity within those refrigerators, because they're either growing specimens or trying to maintain low temperatures within those refrigeration systems. And LoRaWAN has a lot of capabilities, especially when it comes down to amount of sensors that can be utilized on a single gateway, as well as the ease of use. That's probably the big one, is adding sensors to the system is typically fairly straightforward and easy to do. But a lot of that data, once you get it or be able to submit it up to the cloud is a big thing, so they can corporately see, what's going on. Is there issues with how many refrigerators are down? I've looked at potentially putting GPS modules on them as well to track them internally. I'm still working out the details of how to do that. LoRaWAN, as I think Ian mentioned the last time we had our conversation, was accuracy of the LoRaWAN signal and GPS coordinates could be a problem, which it may or may not, depending on the size of the facility that this is being used in. So I'm still looking into it, doing a little more research, maybe utilizing a different technology for the GPS signal, but that's sort of where we are right now. As far as names go, I'm trying to come up with something that's kind of unique and not, I guess, very generic. But at this time, I'm still trying to figure that one out. I've got a couple of ideas, but nothing really has stuck at this point. So that's where we are today.
Fair enough.
That's everyone, Ian. And thanks,
Okay.
Steve.
Great. All right, so that's good. It's, as I said, the name is mostly to try and help with the focus on where you're heading. So useful thing to have. All right, moving along once I can find my cursor again. There we go. Okay, so this fortnight, the things we've got to do is work on Canvanizer if you can access it, which hopefully Steve will be able to do soon. So the categories that we're looking at is the problem. So what are the three top things that your device will attempt to address? So make a list of those. We also should be looking at customer segments, who you're going to target, probably why you're going to target them is a good point as well. And I think in all of these cases, you can have a fairly set target audience. You know, for the fridge humidity, you've got the laboratories and pharmaceutical companies. For the council, there's lots of other councils who have exactly the same issues as you have in Mandurah. For the canal monitoring, lots of countries have water quality, flooding issues that can be there as well. So you can be a bit broader than you would you may initially be thinking to see what sort of scale you can get in your development. One of the key ones is the unique value proposition, and it's the single compelling message about why your IoT idea is different. And if it's a philanthropic one, I'll keep mentioning this because we do have people looking at this area, it's not so much why is it worth buying, it's why is it worth installing. So why would somebody want to do this? In the case of the canals, it would be to avoid flooding or reduce the risk of flooding, to mitigate the effects of flooding. For the Mandurah Council, it's of course reducing salinity, reducing water usage. So there's lots of unique things that you can come up with that other devices won't do, and gives you the advantage. Come up with the top three features that you want to implement. One thing to be very careful of is what you've probably all heard about, feature creep. And that's where you start trying to add this in and that in and all kinds of other things in, and you end up never producing anything because you're always updating it. So limiting it to the top three features is, well, three is just a number. A top set of features that you are going to try and implement in your initial design is fairly important, trying to stick to that limitation wherever possible. You can add them later. It's always nice. You have a version 1.0, then in 2.0 you have a whole bunch of new features, and if you're doing this commercially, that's can assist in increasing your sales. Apple's really, really good at this, releasing a new phone every year, and we all rush out and buy it. So limiting the features and adding them in stage ways is probably a fairly good idea. Channels refers to the ways you're going to get this out to your customers. And each kind of idea would probably have a different way, particularly in this group, of being able to get this out into the field. Again, councils, you have your association of councils that you could take it to get the word out that this is a way of looking at salinity. You'd market your fridge monitoring through your normal marketing channels, but it's all there. So it's a good idea to have an idea of how you can get this out. The canal monitoring one would be a good one to take to government, for example. and have government as your main channel, perhaps particularly in developing countries. One of my favourites, and we've already mentioned briefly.
Excuse me, Ian.
Certainly.
So the channels, is it worth mentioning that, because I'm sure everyone's aware that projects can move very slowly in local government. And one of the reasons why this project has occurred, because people have been wanting this data for a long time. So it's the reverse of, it's them actually approaching us, or having this problem for many years, but now IoT is more of a well-known product. So our customers have approached us and said, well, we actually had a third-party vendor and that didn't go very well. So we thought we would give it a go ourselves, considering there's so many sensors on the market now. So in answer to that, channels on the canvasser, can I put something like customer need or customer want, or because we're not necessarily, or customer satisfaction or something?
You could, but that really fits into that unique value proposition. You're offering something that customers have demanded.
Customer demand there. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Your channels, as I said, if you can't cover one of these, it's not important. It's just that in a normal commercialization process, you would cover most of these. But your channels really are through your council contacts and council clients and other councils. So you wouldn't need to do a lot in that area, I would expect, in your case.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And the other one that ties in fairly, or the two that tie in fairly closely together is the cost structure and the revenue streams. It doesn't matter how you're doing something or for what reason you're doing, you need to be able to have a revenue to cover it. There needs to be some way of recovering the cost. This can be through just existing needs. So there might be water rates, for example, that you could use for the leak monitoring that we developed with one of the insurance companies here. But you do need to have that revenue, and I'll talk a little bit more detail about this when it comes to the revenue and the recoupment of cost and how you're aiming the cost recovery of things that you invest in it. So I won't talk too much about that, but again, looking from the philanthropic side, you may not necessarily want to recover all of your costs or even any of your costs. But if it's a philanthropic product that you want to get out to, say, as in our case, the disability community, we need to be able to recover enough costs on the device to fund the things that we're doing. And that includes your maintenance, your warranty, your service, packaging, and all kinds of other things. So even though you're not doing it to make money directly, you still need to cost it out so that you can continue to offer that service. Another thing we need to put in place is the key metrics on the development of either your business plan or the prototype. Having milestones to aim for gives you something to actually aim for, of course, but lets you know if you're falling ahead or behind a schedule. And that's really important to make sure that you're staying on track. Unfair advantage, again, talk a little bit more about that later, but it's the key advantage of your particular device, such as it can't easily be copied or it may not be economically viable to copy it. With the fridge monitoring, you've got your own fridges, so other people aren't going to put devices into your fridges. Mind you, they might copy it to put into their own, but that's the advantage you've got. You've got control over your own device that you're adding to. So the Canvanizer itself, here's a little sample one we came up with. I think we used it in the IoT one. And this is our snore stop. I won't run through all that. It's there. It's you can have a look at it on the recording, whatever. But you can see that we've tried to pick out things that would help with the development. And when it comes to writing your final report, a lot of this can be directed to, say, paragraph headings or chapter headings, section headings of your report. So you could have the problem statement as your introduction. The unique value proposition would be in the marketing and the revenue streams. You put those together. So this is a really good living document. Start off with what you can, populate it with what you're thinking of, but once you've submitted it, don't throw it away. Keep it there, keep adding and subtracting to it to help you document what you've been doing. So that'll be quite useful. Any
Here,
questions? Yep.
here we have one of the learners here. Their hands are up. Cyberfisk, you have your
Yeah.
hands up. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a question on the revenue streams, because the project I'm making is not something that is planned to be industrialized or ever to hit a real market. But should I plan as if it was a product that I would sell in a real market, or should I plan it as it is in reality? For instance, my main funding will come from my own salary, but will I write that in the business plan, or would I pretend I was pitching this to potential investors?
It's up to you. I would tend to, from the learning perspective, do it as if you're going to commercialize this.
Yeah. Okay.
So that you get that bit of experience or practice at doing a commercial type development, but you don't have to. This is for your own learning. If you're only really doing it for your own use, the revenue streams is, well, where am I going to get the money from myself? You know, I'm taking it out of my salary, so that's your revenue stream, and that's really all you need to cover in that bit, because we're not going to mark this on, oh, you didn't cover revenue streams. It's assessed on the basis that does this match the product that you are trying to develop?
Yeah.
So each one is an individual rubric, really, on how they're marked. Yeah. So I would just, me personally, pretend I was going to commercialize it, so I got that little bit of expertise and a bit of experience in it. However, that's not necessarily true. With the cost recovery, that again is something we talk about, I think, in this one. If you're doing something for a philanthropic purpose or for your own purpose, you wouldn't look at recovering your research and development costs, for example. Those you would just absorb and say, well, I paid that out, it was my time, which I'm not going to actually cost into it. Whereas if you're doing it from a purely commercial perspective, you would want to recoup every hour you put into it, because you may have been paying someone to do it. You'd want to recoup the cost of this course, for example, the cost of any books and materials that came into it. And that adds up to a very, very large amount of money. So when we're looking at commercial products, an iPhone, for example, has been costed, I think, at around less than $100 worth of parts. And yet it costs 2,000 Australian dollars to buy. Why is that? Because of the money they have to sink in to develop the product to begin with. And that is where most of the cost in technology is. Not in the physical device, that's usually very, very cheap. It's in the research and development costs. And that impacts on how you then calculate your cost structure, how you actually work out what you would sell for. So if you're in the disability market like Sebastian and I have been, you're not going to sell a great deal in number. So if you were going to recoup your research and development costs, each item would have a very high percentage of that research and development cost built into every single item you sell. Whereas if you're doing something like a webcam, you'll sell millions and millions of them. So you can divide that research cost into a lot more devices. So the research cost comes down per item. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at any of these commercializations, even for the council, because you still have a budget. So you've still got to work with the budget. You may not need to recoup it, but how are you going to account for that budget? So I think that side, the revenue stream and the cost structure, more importantly, are still very valid, whether you do a philanthropic, something for your own, a not-for-profit, or solving an internal problem in your organisation. It's still important to work out where the money's going.
Yeah.
I refuse to do that on my garden because I spend so much on it, Each zucchini I get, I think, costs me about $80.
Yeah, true. It's actually at the company I work, our main revenue stream is the service of the products we sell. So we kind of get that money after. It's the price of the product is of course a large chunk of the revenue, but our kind of niche is that we get a lot of money maintaining the products we sell years after they hit the market.
Yep. Yep, there's a lot of areas like that, particularly in technology, where there's no money or very little money in the sale of the device. You make your money on the subscription or the maintenance or those other aspects that are ongoing. So this Canvanizer is very open. Do it how you like. If you've got any queries on it, you can send it through to us, ask questions, and we can advise you if need be. But it is very open, and the idea is it's to help you document your progress. So the market research and costing plan, this is to help you consolidate your own ideas more than anything else. There's some key decisions that you need to make before you can complete the plan, such as the business structure, how you're going to handle that recoupment of costs that we just talked about, and those sort of things. So it is just some way of helping you focus a bit more on how you would go about the process. It's very important that you know the industry and the environment that you're going to be going into, and how it will operate. So it's a good idea to have a bit of a search around on other like products, what the competition will be, what existing technology is out there, because it's never worth reinventing the wheel if you don't have to. So if there's something out there that you can use without breaking copyright or patents, at a more effective cost than redeveloping something yourself, it's definitely worth doing. We have lots of issues in the university sector where students plagiarize and use other people's work. And the only reason we get upset is if they don't acknowledge where they got it from and they claim it as their own. However, if they use someone else's work and acknowledge that it's someone else's work and that they found it, they get lots of brownie points because they're doing the right thing. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're using the existing technology, existing solutions, and improving on them. And that's the way things progress. Good places to start looking for ideas and competition as well is to look at patents. Even though we've only got Australian sites up here, everyone can access them. There are local patent organisations in every country, but it's a good place to get some idea of what's out there and what's going on. So moving on to the plan itself, here's the things we would like to cover. The industry analysis part, we've got political, economic, social, technology, and the industry. Never underestimate the political. The political is always an issue, particularly if your particular device is on any of the government watch lists. Is there regulation involved in it? Is there standards that you have to adhere to? So if we're in pharmaceuticals, we've obviously got lots and lots of standards we've got to adhere to, probably lots of certifications you have to go through. And by adding your IoT device into a pharmaceutical device, are you going to have to go through recertification again? And these can be real threats to your product. I don't think we've got any here, but we have had in the past things that are dealing with, say, telecommunications. And there we've got to look at the political stability of countries and their telecommunications regulation and where they can communicate and where they can't communicate. Like there's not a lot of point in creating an IoT device for North Korea because they don't have any eye to do the rest of it. So there are things in the political that you have to look at. Look at the economic factors. Again, this is applicable to everyone because even in that, I'm glad we've got this local government one because it gives us an example of one of the extremes. If you're in local government, as I said, you've got a budget and you're going to have to justify that budget. So what are the economic factors that are going to help you maintain and justify your budget? And it's the same with everyone. You need to be able to approach either your funding providers, if you're doing monitoring of your plants inside your house and you happen to be married, you'd better ask your better half, am I allowed to spend this money on it? So you've still got those economic factors to look at. And there's quite a few things there that you can read and see. Social is also another one. Cultural factors. What's a good example of that? Developing countries are probably a fairly good example of the social side of things. We may be trying to develop a system to help farmers, yet the farmers are not well educated. They may even be illiterate in developing countries. How are you going to communicate with them? What is the social standing? Is there any cultural, what do you call it? Cultural no-nos, because I can't think of the right word.
Yes.
Particular things you're trying to do. If you're working on a particular smart form of clothing, is it culturally appropriate for the market you're going into? So it's again something that a lot of people may not think of, but is crucially important in many markets. The technology factors, of course, things are advancing really, really quickly. Are we getting into something after the peak of the hype? Is it going to be outdated by the time we develop it? Are we planning for sufficient internet access? Now, a couple of you guys are talking about using LoRaWAN, and that's great. But we've got 5G rolling out everywhere. Perhaps 5G might be an answer, which in some cases it's not, of course, because you don't need that sort of bandwidth. But keep these things in mind, that technology is changing. Things are going out of date. They'll become unavailable. There may be compatibility issues. So you need to be well aware of where things are heading and what is emerging to be able to continue on. And the last one there is the industry itself. What are the trends that are affecting the industry? And again, I keep harping on back to this local government one because I think it's something makes a lot of sense to me. The trends in industry, your industry, and the water industry is about quality, maximizing efficiency and reducing wastage, and being able to tell what you're doing. So those are the trends that industry is looking at: greening everything, making things more environmentally friendly. So working in that sort of area makes a lot of sense.
And just to let you know also, grants and funding, they ask for data-driven results now as well.
Yep.
And also, if you want to become made efficient, a gold or a platinum member of a industry or a society, they ask for data-driven reports to show your results. So
that could be one of your major drivers then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what we need to do is also have a look at the competitor analysis. Now, in some cases, this may not be too detailed, particularly when you're doing things either for your own use or for some philanthropic purpose. But you need to have a look at what's already out there and why the device that you are doing is different and how you would have an advantage over competitors. It comes back again to that unique value proposition, but a little bit closer look at the strengths and weaknesses of your competition rather than the strengths and weaknesses of your own solution. Because you can learn a lot from the weaknesses of other companies. Again, we can use Apple. One of their greatest strengths is customer loyalty. One of their greatest weaknesses is all based around Steve Jobs and his reputation for being a perfectionist. And if you're really honest, it's partially true because the quality of Apple products has decreased since the death of Steve Jobs, because people aren't that scared anymore of their new CEO. Really interesting reads. If you ever want to read scary story, look at the life of Steve Jobs and what he did, written by the people who worked for him. He was a scary man. All right, so the market research and costing plan. Here's what we need to do. The pricing strategy, we've talked about a little bit there. There's a very good article. Hopefully it's still there. Do you want to just check that link still works? I haven't this year. Savash?
Yep, I'm checking it.
Yep. but it does describe different ways of creating your pricing strategy, and it does include things like the cost plus pricing, which is what you would use in philanthropic type endeavors to cover your costs, to ensure you've got the money to continue, that you can support the devices that you're creating. And then we've got competition orientated, or the return on investment, psychological pricing, which is the one I was talking about with Apple, and that very keen band of Apple devotees that we have, which I must admit I'm one. I do like Apple products.
It's still up. Yeah.
Sorry?
Sorry to cut you off. It's still up. I've posted it in the chat as well, in case people want to check it out.
Yeah, it's a rather good little, very brief article on how to approach pricing from very different perspectives. So that's always worth having a read of. Okay, this one is really, really important, because anytime you need to go out to a funding body, they will ask for something along these lines. Maybe not necessarily a SWOT exactly, but they will ask a risk assessment or something similar that is involved in your project. So almost every grant application that I do has a risk analysis or SWOT analysis contained within it that looks at what are the things that could go wrong, and if they do go wrong, how are you going to mitigate them? And SWOT analysis is just one tool for doing this. When you're doing it, try to be realistic. Look at some real threats. Don't make them up if they don't exist. There's no point in that. But try and be realistic and create some real threats, and look at the mitigation factors that you can undertake to reduce that. And this really does help if you're considering taking this to investors or taking it further, or for our people who are doing something within their company or people who are doing something in the local government. I think you'd see that your managers would really like to see something along these lines. And it's a very common business tool to have. Okay, so to sum up this, week 4 tasks, some of this isn't that relevant since we've got a fairly small class now. I think we can actually just have one topic team. Make sure you're posting in there, like some other people's ideas. If you think they're good, please try and comment. We've decided which web conference group we're going to have, because we're only having one now. So hopefully that suits everyone at least reasonably well. Make sure you watch the product development videos that were produced by a very good friend of mine who does this sort of thing for a living. It's really all he does is create new products. Well, he doesn't actually create them. He manages a company that creates them. So he facilitates the new product development for entrepreneurs and inventors and those sort of people. Populate your Canvanizer template and have it submitted. And this is the first grade assessment. It's worth 10% of your total mark. Anything else to add to that, Savash?
No, I'll just mention, if your project is under NDA and you don't want to share the details of that with other students, make sure to not submit the Canvanizer link to WebEx, because the Canvanizer is peer assessed, so everyone will, other learners within WebEx would be able to see it. So what you can do is just put a statement on WebEx and email us the Canvanizer link, and we'll mark it. Besides that, I think that's the main thing I wanted to bring up. And if you do want to discuss your project outside these group meetings, feel free to send us an email. We'll find a time to have a chat with you, provide some assistance if we can.
Yeah, so the main purpose of this capstone MOOC really is about us trying to assist you to develop your prototype. It's very different to most MOOCs where there's lots of content sitting up there. There isn't a lot of content, but you do have the opportunity to talk to Yiffy, Savash, myself, Val, David, and anyone else that we think is able to assist you in any technical or even business issues that you may be having. And worst case scenario, link you up with someone who can assist. Oops, sorry about that.
Just want to add a little bit of technical stuff. So since a lot of people are interested in LoRaWAN, and so in order to use LoRaWAN, you not only need the physical gateway, you also have to deploy a network and application server, which is sometimes not included with the gateway itself. So you have either to use like a cloud platform like the what's called the Things network, or you have to deploy open source one like a Chirpstack by yourself. But recently, because we have a Professor Petra also using LoRaWAN for her research, we found this one is quite interesting. I just sent the link in the chat. It's a gateway which actually includes the network server application server inside itself. So you can use this gateway like a regular Wi-Fi device rather than a LoRaWAN device. So just plug this in and you can hook up your LoRaWAN sensor, like you hook up your phone to a Wi-Fi access point. So it's quite interesting and very easy to use.
It's a good point, because LoRa has been a little bit finicky, to say the least, setting up. Oh, we've still got a bit. Anyone got any comments, questions, anything at all?
Anything last minute? And I'll mention the next submission coming up, because we have one submission, which is your Caminizer, that's due at the end of this week. And the next one is going to be the IoT presentation submission. That's due on 14th of May. So just I want to say with that one, it can be either you just kind of sitting in front of a webcam talking to us and giving us the pitch of the IoT idea, or it could be a presentation that you end up recording. So the format of it is completely up to you. So yeah, please let us know if you had any issues with those. And one thing I think we forgot to mention again, if you don't get a response to us within say 2 business days, please feel free to send that email again, because we might get into some busy periods and we might miss an email coming from the course. But if you don't hear a response, please let us know and send the email through again. We'll definitely get to it.
Squeaky wheel. Make the most noise, you'll get the attention. Okay, then I'll stop the recording.